Okay, so in the last class, actually we were looking at syntax-driven semantic analysis, right? So in syntax-driven semantic analysis, what we said is the translation or the meaning associated with the sentence is generated along with the or whenever a syntactic construct is recognized. And to do that, what we said is associated with every production in the grammar, we have that is we augment the grammar with that is we associate along with the production we have some action to generate the meaning corresponding to that production. Okay, and basic idea of syntax-driven semantic analysis is whenever we identify a construct, we generate the corresponding meaning, and the meaning of a sentence is built up from its component words. The meaning of its component words. That is what we saw. Okay, that is called compositional semantics. And what it means is it is based on the meaning of words alone, and it is not dependent on the context in which that sentence is used or context in which the words are used and so on. So that is not taken into account. Now today we will be looking at lexical semantics, where we are talking about the meanings of words and what are the issues associated with generating meanings of words. Okay, so that it is from there that we build up to the meaning of sentences. Okay, so we start with what a lexeme is. So a lexeme is a fundamental unit of lexicon of a language. Fundamental unit of a language is what is known as a lexeme. And generally, a lexeme, that is fundamental unit of meaning associated with a language, is called a lexeme. And lexeme is often, generally, it is only an individual word, say a bat, ball, etc. are individual words. So lexeme is generally only that. But sometimes we also might have multi-word lexeme. Say, for example, the phrases like give up and take off. So all these things can be considered to be have a single meaning associated with, right? Or couch potato and so on. And lexeme is usually represented by what is known as a lemma. And lemma is a grammatical form that is used to represent a lexeme. Say, for example, if you have sing, sang, sung, singing, all of them can be represented using the lemma to sing. Okay, all these different forms of the word sing can be represented using the lemma to sing. Okay, and the process of mapping from a word form to a lemma is called lemmatization. So this is actually a term which is commonly seen when we talk about the field of natural language processing. There are a lot of pre-processing steps before we actually apply some algorithms on the sentences. This actually the process of lemmatization is actually one of those pre-processing steps. Okay, and okay, and lexical semantics is a systematic study of meaning-related structure of words. So it's meaning associated with words. That is what lexical semantics is about. Now, before going into the details of lexical semantics and how we can generate meanings of lexemes, we will look at some of the relationships among how different words or lexemes are related to each other and how they have similar meaning and how the same words can have different meanings and so on. Okay, so we'll look at some of the terminologies associated with that. So semantics of a lexeme can be understood by analyzing the relationships of lexemes with other lexemes. So one terminology is homonymy or homonyms. Okay, homonyms are words that are the same form but different unrelated meanings. The meanings are unrelated to each other. Say for example, bank. Okay, word it can have either the meaning of river bank or it can be generally bank from where we say withdraw money. Okay, so it has two senses. Same word. Okay, the same word have two different unrelated meanings, or we can say it has two different senses, word senses. Okay, word sense. It's a term which we will come more in later classes also. Okay, so word sense is a discrete representation of one aspect of the meaning of a word. That is called a word sense. You can have different word senses for the same word. And there is another term called homophones. Phone means something, phonemes we say. It is something related with the sound. So homophones are pronounced the same but have different meanings. Say, for example, bee and bee, bear and bear, and so on. Next term is polysemy, that is, words that have more than one meaning or sense. Okay, but the meanings are actually related to each other. Here we said they are unrelated meanings, but here there is some relationship between the meanings. Say, for example, chair. Chair can be a piece of furniture, or also chair can be a person who presides over a meeting, or it can be a verb meaning to preside over a meeting, and so on. Right here. So here, chair is either a piece of furniture or a person who presides over a meeting. So this word has different meanings, and you can say there is some relationship between them, right? Because piece of furniture, you are sitting on a piece of furniture to preside over a meeting. So there is some relationship between. Then you say it is polysemy. Next concept is hypernymy or hypernym is a word which has a more general sense than another word. Say, for example, automobile is a hypernym of car. Okay, it has more generic meaning than a car. Car is more specific, right? So when it is more specific, it is called a hyponym. Okay, hyponym is a word with a more specific meaning, and hypernym is a word with a more generic meaning. Antonymy, antonym means it is one with opposite meaning. Uh, and opposite to the concept opposite to that is synonym, which have similar meaning. Then you have meronymy, which is words which have a part-whole relationship. Say, for example, wall and room. Okay, wall is a part of a room, or ceiling is a part of a room, and so on. That is meronymy. Okay, so these are some ways that words or lexemes can be related to each other. Next, we look at the structure of words. So, when we talked about the semantic analysis and generation of meaning, we said that the verb forms what is a pivotal element in a sentence for defining meaning, right? And we said that the subject and predicate, actually, which might be noun phrases, um, mm, can be thought of as arguments to the verb. Okay, so here. Thematic role is a concept in which the semantic relationship between a predicate, which is a verb, and an argument of a sentence. So, what is the relationship between, or what is the semantic relationship between a predicate, which is a verb, and an argument? So, that relationship is called a thematic role. Say, for example, we have president nominates speaker, right? So, president is actually the subject. Um, and it is, you can say, the subject of nominate is nominator, or you can say eat, the subject of eat can be eater, read can be reader, or sing can be singer, and so on. So generically speaking, all performers of some event, okay, all performers of some event which are animate, which are living beings and have a direct causal responsibility for that event, take on the thematic role of agent. Agent corresponding to a given event. Okay, agent is someone who performs an event but who is animate or living being and has a direct causal responsibility for that event. Then you say it is an agent. So when you say president nominates a speaker, so president is actually an agent because he is performing some event of nominating someone else. Okay, next we come across arguments. Okay, arguments that are affected by the action are called take on the thematic role of theme. Say, for example, here you say this speaker is affected by this nomination, right? So you can say the speaker is actually takes on the role of the thematic role of theme. Okay, so like that you can have different roles associated with words. Okay, so these are some of the thematic roles given in your text. So agent we have already seen, theme also. Now instrument is the instrument used to carry out an action. Say for example, I open the lock with the key. So I here is the agent who did the action. Open is a verb. Lock is actually the theme because the action is performed on lock, and with a key. What is it done with? A key. So key is the instrument. And there are also other thematic roles. Say, for example, experiencer, it is argument that undergoes some emotional experience. Say, for example, Shweta hates cricket. So, Shweta is going through some emotional experience. So, she is the experiencer. And then you have a thematic role of force. So, here, if it is an unconscious performer of an event, okay, unconscious, it's not deliberate. Here we said it is deliberate performer of an event. But if it is an unconscious performer of an event, then you see it is a force. Say, for example, the storm blew over many trees. The storm is actually an unconscious performer, so it's a force. Then you have location, so place where the event occurs. So in the garden is the location. Like that, you can have different thematic roles. Now we come across something else associated with the semantics, which is called selectional restrictions. Okay, selectional restrictions are actually constraints or semantic constraints that are placed on argument for a given word sense. So we said corresponding to a verb, we have different arguments or thematic or themes, right? Thematic roles are associated with the different noun phrases and so on. And selectional restriction means we are associating some constraints or restrictions on what type of arguments can be given to a particular word sense or particular verb. Say, for example, for verb eat. Okay, so if you are saying if eat is the verb, then the object or theme has to be food item, right? What we eat can only be food item. So the object or theme has to be a food item, and the eating eater or the agent, okay, the subject or the agent has to be an animate object. It cannot be an inanimate object. That is, you cannot say a table eats grass, right? So here the agent is a table, so you cannot say that. So this is not meaningful. So you can place restrictions or selectional restrictions on sentences in order to say that whatever is the agent here has to be an animate object, and whatever is placed here has to be edible thing. Edible, it has to be some food item. It cannot be, say for example, glass or metal or anything like that. So how can we place restrictions? So this is one way. Okay, we have been talking about meaning representation using first order predicate calculus. So here there exists some E and X and Y, where E is an event called eating, and the agent of this event E is X, and the theme of the event E is Y. Okay, theme of the event, that is a food the person is eating, and we are also saying that Y, the theme, is an edible entity. So this is the restriction we are placing. It has to be an edible entity. Okay, so when you do that, we can say ate an apple is valid, but eat a book, it is not valid. Okay, so in order to place restrictions like this, what is required is that a knowledge base has to be there, which contains representations of the fact mentioned in the selection restriction. That is, the case that whatever why you are saying is an edible thing. Okay, if you want to say it is an edible thing, that sort of information has to be, okay, that why is an edible thing, it has to be placed in a knowledge base. Okay. Or we can say we can use an alternative like WordNet. So WordNet is actually it is actually a database, something like a knowledge base where all the words and their relationships, hyponym relationships are all there. Okay, and WordNet specifies synsets of arguments. Okay, WordNet synsets means synonymous set. So every word has a set of synonyms associated with it. All those are actually placed in a WordNet. Okay, and a meaning representation is considered well formed if one of the hyponyms of the words that fill the thematic role matches the synset used to specify the selection restriction. So, in what this means is, what this big sentence means is, that is, if you have a selection restriction to say that the thematic role called it's not agent, what was it? Theme. Okay. If the theme corresponding to it has to be some food, then in order to decide that apple is actually a valid food item, what we can do is we can look at the hypernym chain of apple. So in the case of WordNet, WordNet is actually a database consisting of all the valid words and the relationship, the hyponym relationships are also associated with it, and for every word a synonym set is also associated. So all those relationships are part of WordNet. So if we have a sentence, and in order to sentence like this, ate an apple, and if you want to enforce a selectional restriction that the apple or the theme has to be a food item. So in that case, in order to do that, we have to examine the hypernym chain. Hypernym means something more general than this. So you can have apple, can be, you can say it is a fruit, okay, and you can from fruit you can say it is something, okay, different. You can represent it as a hierarchy. So in that chain, at some point, if there is an edible thing, we look at an example maybe. But if it is an edible, then you can say the selection restriction is satisfied. Okay, say for example, here this is part of the WordNet hypernym hierarchy. Okay, so in the case of apple, so the next thing is edible fruit. Okay, and after edible fruit, then comes it's some produce, it is green goods, green groceries, and from there you have actually look, it is a food item. That information in the hierarchy, the information that apple is a food item is actually present in this hypernym hierarchy, and so from this it is possible to verify that apple is a food item, and so we can enforce the selection restriction here. Okay. Okay, so basically what we just got introduced to the issues associated with lexical semantics. Okay, so that is what we looked at, lexical semantics. We came across some terminology associated with lexical semantics, and then the different relationship between words, homonymy, polysemy, and so on. And also how we define in a given sentence the different roles associated in a sentence for corresponding to different words. And finally, we talked about selectional restrictions which can be applied on sentences and how it can be enforced using some, what do you say, some knowledge base like WordNet. So this is what we covered.